WarsawJS.
Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to present you the strategic approach to updating the UI library, including all the challenges and lessons learned during that process. And actually, it's an updated edition since from my last talk, which happened on the Wrocław Meetup, we do a lot of work and we developed some new capabilities. And today, I would love to share everything with you. And mandatory slide about me. So my name is Luke, and I'm software engineer at Kostak, based in Wrocław, and I'm contributing to React Native paper from 2017, and I'm the maintainer of that library from 2021. And during that time, I became an author of over 100 merged PRs to that library. And thanks. And I'm also former contributor to the WordPress Gutenberg, mainly to the mobile part of that blog editor. And probably, as you might guess from my introduction, updating process will apply to React Native paper library to introducing the new material design generation called Material U. And what is React Native paper? For those who missed that library, it's a cross-platform UI kit library which contains a collection of customizable components and production-ready for React Native, which are following the Google's material design guidelines. And it's mobile-first package, but we support the web platform as well. So if you are wondering whether it's worth to use that, let me present some benefits. Paper is a great solution for creating an app prototypes or MVPs, where you want to mainly focus on the logical layer of your app and visual layer is just provided. It's kind of wasting a time to craft and style the same components like button inputs, toggles from the scratch again and again. And what's more, those components can have different brand colors since theming system is built in the library. Which can be additionally tailored to the user needs. And we do our best to provide components created for everyone. So we take care about the compatibility with the screen readers and also right to left languages. Those three aspects pay off in the development process acceleration and rapid time to market. So yeah, we can say that paper is a product, but it's also a solution, a product creation process, and definitely can help startups and enterprises. 2 years ago, I wrote an article about that, and it's still valid. So if you want to dive more into that topic, you can check the Kostak blog. Let's take a quick look at the statistic. Thanks to the fact that library is still maintained and developed, in October last year, 2021, we exceeded over half a million monthly downloads. We collected 10,000 stars on GitHub and merged over 1.8 thousand commits. So I think it's about the time to present you how components looked in Material Design version 2. And in the meantime, if you would like to check those components on your devices, you can download the app from the stores. From on the right, you have the QR code. On my right, you have the QR code for iOS, and on the left for Android. Don't worry if you just miss the slide. Those QR codes will be also here. Because I also recorded a couple of components such as button, bottom navigation, floating action button, dialog, and also present you the typography on that video. You can pay the special attention to the bottoms tab colors and ripple effect when I was pressing that. To the floating action button shape and height, to the dialog container composition, and basically border radius 0 shape container, which was kind of specific for that version, and also the number of typography variants available in Material Design 2. Okay, time to present the future. So Material U comes into play. And the current video is presenting exactly the same components, but adjusted to the latest material design generation. And except for the colors related changes, we can observe new component types. For example, in button, bottom's navigation doesn't have those candy colors and ripple effect, and received new animation. In the floating action button and in the dialog components, we can notice refined hives and shapes. And what's more, we also added an option for dialog icon at the top of the content. And the last example is the typography, which received 15 variants. In the previous version, it had only 5. So everything presented so far, you can find in the React Native paper version 5, which is introducing Material U, the third and the latest generation of material design. And did I really say everything? Yes, that's true. The present is the result of the past and the future, which means that both material design generation are supported in the latest paper version. In the example app, after opening the drawer, you can observe there is a switch which toggles between those two material design versions. And after turning it on, you can switch back to Material 2 and compare how components have been changed. For example, here you can observe how floating action button group animation has different configuration and backdrop color. At the beginning, when Material U has been released, I was receiving divided different personal opinions about that generation, and I'm still receiving them. However, it was clear for me, for my team, that paper would certainly support Material U. And we decided to went one step further and support 2 versions at the same time, because we have a R&D program in the call stack which let us kick off and maintain that process, because we have really solid team which could handle that, because changes are mostly concern visual aspect followed by API changes. So it was definitely possible, because we believe it's better to have a choice. So it's up to user which material design generation fits more into the product or user needs, because it's easy. And no, definitely it's false, because easy can be 2 multiplied by 2 or 2 plus 2 multiplied by 3, but I heard it can be tricky though. But yeah, 2 versions multiplied by 3 platforms, multiplied by 2 modes, light and dark, multiplied by 2 writing directions, left to right and right to left, multiplied by the number of components and their variation cannot be easy, especially when it comes to testing all possible scenarios with different props. So why 2 versions are supported? And time for some coaching mantras. We didn't bother because we believed that impossible is nothing and sky is the limit, and we knew that we can handle that. So since it was quite difficult and sometimes complicated process, what was the motivation? No. You and your happiness from the library, you as the community who will always have a choice, can have a choice, will always receive the updated version with fixed bugs. And at the same time, we wanted to provide the stability by limiting the release of many breaking changes. And recently, I was receiving a couple times the question, hey, Luke, does it mean that V4 won't be supported? And let me answer. So yeah, technically, that's true. There will be no more releases of V4. But practically, it's false, since React Native Paper 5.0 supports both generations, and user can keep their existing design with the latest library. So in the center, there is a true. You can think about React Native paper 5.0 as an extended and modified version 4. Okay, time to go through the update process. And how did it actually go? So everything started on the internal workshop where with the team, based on the available resources as a new documentation and Figma kit, we were able to discuss the components changes, plan and organize the work, and we also prepared the strategy and we ordered some food because we think better on the full stomach. And I know that Barry said that there would be no stupid jokes, but if there is someone from Bolt, Volt, Glovo, next time it can be your advert. We can order from your app. On the same meeting, we set a couple principles. So the first one is planning branching strategy. At first, we decided to create new branch from main called next, and then we decided to merge all new pull requests into that branch. However, sometimes we pushed hot fixes to the main. That's why to release some patches to v4. And that's why at the end of the work, we had to rebase next with main to, and finally we renamed main to 4.0 to rename next to main. Since we agreed that two versions at the same time will be supported, we decided to add new property to the theme called version. And thanks to which user can define which material design generation should be applied into the project. We wanted to keep everything in one file covered by ithology. So we introduced some kind of indicator called isv3 determining which version should be applied. And we are not fans of that ithology. We consider different approaches, but at the same time, that one fits the most in that time. However, currently our goal is to improve and simplify that. And the last principle on our to-do list was highlighting props changes by adding some annotation like deprecated, supporter, or rename to avoid further confusions. In the next step, we went through each component and marked the most important differences in form of comparison table. And first two columns indicates the difference between version 2 and 3. Documentation already did that. However, we were considering those changes from the code base perspective, which you can see on the last column. For the instance, button height has changed, so we had to adjust spacing in its styles. Next change is related to the text within the button, and in v3 is using sentence case. So from the code perspective, we had to add default value for uppercase prop based on the theme version. Since in the theme there is a property called roundness, which indicates the roundness of common elements, we also had to introduce appropriate multiplier in button component due to the border radius change. And several components received new variants or modes, so we were discussing how to adjust their naming. And basically, we were looking for some compromise between being consistent with our code base and with material design. And based on the button example, 3 new types were introduced: elevate, field, and field tonal. And actually, field type was replacing what previously was known as contained. We decided to stick to that naming. That's why field is still named contained, and field tonal is named contained tonal. And based on the collected data, we were able to create tasks for each component. Changes were grouped in 3 sections. First, called new things for new modes, new sizes, new variants. Second, differences for changes mostly concerned like animation, shape, or elevation. And the last one called to check for the aspects we were not sure on that moment and required more investigation. For example, whether that specific component should have default shadow or no. And before we started the work over refactoring components, we refreshed the technology stack by updating TypeScript, React Native, Expo, and navigation, since we have the example app. All right, time to adjust components to material view. And we started from the core components and the fundamental one. So the first one were theming and typography. And our first idea was to have exactly the same design tokens, naming in colors and typography as it's used in the Figma. However, we decided to replace the kebab case in favor of camel case. And I mentioned design tokens, so let me quickly present you what it is. Basically, the design token is the key representing the small repeated design decision which creates design system visual style. Okay. Tokens can replace static values, which are, for example, hex codes for colors. And for the instance, the background color of that presentation is the primary 19 from the palette, and at the same time, primary 90 from the palette represents that hex color. And the same with the color text, which is named on primary container represents some kind of the color primary 10 from the palette and also represents the hex colors. And design token, as mentioned, also can be applied to the fonts, where in our example, under the key display large, there is an object with couple font properties. Okay, so once typography and theming were adjusted, we focused on crucial components. So surface, which is basically view container with predefined shadows, touchable ripple, and the rest of the components. Okay, from that step, we are refactoring components one after another by applying styles following the Figma kit. And I still consider myself a pixel-oriented developer, and I made sure several times that everything was in its place. But now, from the time perspective, I know that some details were overlooked. However, once styles were applied and props are refined, it's time to cover new things by unit and manual testing. So double checking on the real device by playing with them with different props configuration. And if manual testing presented some issues, we were applying them to finally were able to open the PR. In the meantime, we refreshed the paper website, updated the documentation to support props annotation, and we were updating a migration guide according to the components changes. The last phase was mainly focused on PR review testing, and the recipe for that step, it's not so complicated. Start from asking other teammates, reviewers, collaborators for additional review and additional testing. Then based on the feedback which you receive, adjust the comments, and remember to take some few minutes for the final testing to then press the merge button. And the last piece of the puzzle, and also the most exciting moment, is releasing the first candidate version. So time to party. But hold on, not so fast. A couple hours later or days, you are starting receiving the first issues related to the release candidates. And personally, I think it's even a more exciting moment because that means that someone already tried the release candidate version and provided the feedback. And I even remember that I was observing the NPM statistics to check whether someone installed the RC. So quick look on the timeline to summarize where we currently are in the process. So in June 22, 8 months after releasing the material U, the first per release candidate has been released. And 6 months later, 6 December, as a Santa Claus gift, we released the stable version. Okay, so let's take a look what happened during those 6 months. In the first wave, we were focused on material U adjustments. And it was a phase where we mainly collecting the feedback from users and applying fixes. Which means we added some missing capabilities into components, which we overlooked previously, or correct some components, color spacings, to match the latest guidelines. Second aspect were bugs affecting the whole library. They were not strictly related to the material U, and usually we're fixing them in parallel to the material U adjustments. And that's why, as I mentioned in the first slides, related to the branching strategy. From time to time, we cherry pick them and released past patches to the version 4 as a response to the user requests. Okay, finally, the last stage was focused around new feature. So what's new? Let me share the content. Let me share the new content with you. And starting from the tooltip component, which is displayed upon tapping and holding the screen element, used to present an informative text label, identifying an element. And it's one of the components that were missing in the library, and also in the previous version, and about which I received a lot of questions. So it was high time to introduce it for both material design systems. Second component is segmented buttons, and its new component introduced in the latest version. However, it can be understood as a refined version of toggle button, and it allows you to select options, switch views, or sort elements. It's intended to support single or multiple or multi-select variants and provide many customization options. Drawer collapsed item is newly created side navigation component that can be used within the drawer. It's representing the destination in the form of the icon, action item with icon, and optionally label. Paper library was always compatible with React Navigation library, and our goal is to maintain that approach. So along with introducing new theme color structure, which differs significantly from React Navigation, it was clear to us that some kind of helper to adjust those both themes is more than needed. That's why we crafted Adapt Navigation theme, which accepts navigation compliant themes in both modes and returns the equivalents adjusted to the MD3. Based on the material theme builder and with the use of the package with algorithms and utilities that power Material Design 3 color system, we crafted a tool which allowed to generate two colors themes, light and dark, based on the provided source color. Created schemes, of course, follow the Material Design 3 and covers color structure from our paper theme. And tool is available in theming section on paper docs. And what user has to do is basically type the color and then copy the color schemes from generated JSON in order to pass them to the colors in the theme object. And I created demo sport app, and by using a dynamic theme, you can easily assign different color to the different theme. And for the instance, red theme is added to the red theme, and the same for the green color. And as you can see, dynamic themes works well with dark mode as well. And that's not all. We are going to extend its functionality by adding an option to support custom colors or secondary, tertiary, and neutral. So let me quickly check how to migrate from V4 to V5, but everything has been described in the migration guide, so let's treat it as a quick cheat sheet. Okay, maybe I will just, if I have only 5 minutes, maybe I will skip that, so since it's in the documentation, and I will focus on what we have learned during that process. So estimation. I cannot give you the ready-made solution for the estimation, but I can provide you some hints or tips, like what you should consider during the estimation. Expect the unexpected is the first one. So during the development, you will face some blockers, which has been discussed within the team and resolved with the highest priority. So consider the time for internal discussion and finding the solution. Also remember about the time for manual and unit testing, especially when you have a lot of scenarios to cover. Feedback kit or documentation can have some updates, so also pay attention to observe their updates and add some buffer for it. And keep in mind that some components are more complicated than another. For the instance, have more variants or modes, or the code is even more complicated. So apply also the correct buffer for that. And Google mistakes. I know that we are in the Google space, but no hard feelings. Don't worry if you make mistakes, the best do them too. So on the right side, you can observe the fragment from the documentation, which is saying to not use navigation bar for fewer than 3 destinations. And on the left side, you can observe Gmail and Contacts app with exactly 2 tabs. Documentation also indicates to not elevate the chip button when it's pressed. However, on the left side, when I run the video, you can observe that large files or videos chip button are elevates. So yeah, which one then is correct? Google product or Google documentation? It's hard to say. But we are doing our best and to avoid mistakes, but we also failed. And in the first iteration of Adapt Navigation theme, which I introduced before, util was accepting only React Navigation themes as valid param keys. And Adapter under the hood was able to adapt colors from React Navigation theme, but only to the built-in material design free themes. In other words, users were not able to adjust navigation theme to their custom paper theme. And what's more, ridiculous is that at the same time I was creating that tool for creating dynamic custom themes. And in order to fix that, we had to extend the Adapt Navigation theme to accept custom themes, but compliant with material design. And we also changed the param keys, light and dark, were renamed to React Navigation Light and React Navigation Dark. How many times you had the situation where you said, okay, leave it right now, at the moment, let it be like this, we will back to that topic to not stop the process. Be careful, it's the beginning of the waterfall known as technical debt. And one thing is to be aware of that. Second thing is to plan how to pay it back. And of course, the sooner, the better. For the instance, right now in the paper, is when it's in the stable shape and community is satisfied, I hope we are going to focus on the code base and solve, for example, those if conditions, which I mentioned in the first slides, to basically avoid further components, maintenance issues, or confusions. And if you currently have snapshots in your code base and you are introducing new versions, take the advantage of snapshot diff library, and it can help you to properly test differences in components between versions. Supporting different themes is hard. We currently maintain types for both versions at the same time, and this led to many problems with paper, detecting the right theme for hooks and props used across the app. But we managed to handle that, and right now, by default, TypeScript works well whenever you change the value of the built-in theme properties, and it gets more complicated when you want to extend the default theme properties or change their type, but it's not so complicated. What the user has to do is create a typed hook called useAppTheme, for example, in their project based on the use theme from the paper, and start using useAppTheme across the components in the whole app. And the same flow applies to both generations. And to facilitate the process of writing migration guide, I recommend you to add proper PR description with the list of the changes, like introducing, replacing, duplicating props. But also you can achieve the same by introducing change sets, which can help you with explaining what has been changed or what will be released. And the last one, it's more like a hint, but keep in mind that releasing major version is the perfect time for breaking changes. For the instance, in paper, we renamed some props. I know. As my teacher said, the break is for the teacher, not for the students. So for the instance, in paper, we renamed and unified some props which differ from the common pattern. And also we replaced one duplicated library. And it's not something specific for breaking changes. However, new introduced package has to be installed as a pure dependency. So from V5, user has to install it together with paper. And from that place, I would like to thank my awesome team: Daniel Szczepanik, Olimpia Żurek, Aleksandra Desmur-Slinczewska, Jan Jaworek, Kevin Werszczyński, Hur Ali, Satya Sohu, and Bruno Castro And I would like to also thank everyone who made a contribution to that library by creating PR, providing feedback, some ideas, or reporting the issue. And that's it for today. Once again, I'm Luke, and it was a pleasure to present you my case study. Thanks.
Okay. I know you can't hear me. Congratulations. Do you have a question, Artur? Here you go. Let's see. Is this working? Is this working? No. Yes, no, yes, no. Can you hear it? Turn it up, Louisa.
No. I'm also the maintainer of a huge UI library. I have taken a lot from your talk. I think, did everybody understand the deep wiseness in his? So I highly recommend, over the years you can get back to this question. Yeah. So you have made 163 pull requests out of 1,800. Could you? I won't be going through all of them. Do you maybe remember some special one which you are especially proud of? Like there was something interesting, or you had to work a lot on this, or you were re-implementing it a few times. Sometimes I'm doing things for 3 times. I would be very glad to hear that. Thank you very much. Wonderful talk. Bravo.
Thanks.
Bravo.
Thanks for the question. So let me answer that. And yeah, I remember one PR the most because I was creating the floating action button group component, the one which you can recognize from the Google Gmail app, the one with that speed dial buttons. And why it's so important for me, because it was the first component which probably had some complicated animation inside the paper. But also I remember that one because I when I was in the process of creating that component, I created some sneak peek on the Twitter, recorded that animation, and just share with the whole community and my I think at the time 50 followers on the Twitter that I'm creating something new to the paper. And even Dan Abramov liked my Twitter, so I was like, whoa. So it can be that component has to be dope. Like if even Dan Abramov likes my tweet, yeah. So that's the one which I remember so much.
Hey, thanks for your awesome presentation. And I think it's really hard to maintain an open source project because I never did this. So my question is, is it hard? Because at the end of the day, it will not pay your rent.
Like the in the podcast which we had with Łukasz, and also it was about the paper. I mentioned that open source for me was like the springboard from my commercial project. So basically, in 8 hours, I'm working on the commercial project, and I also have some dedicated time in Callstack for maintaining the library. As I mentioned, also we have the R&D program which allow me to do that. But yeah, just the is it hard to maintain? Yes, it is, because you have to check the PRs, answer people, solve their issues, or basically try to replicate or reproduce their issues and manage all the things. But there are also other aspects, maybe not related strictly to the code base, but the project management, just trying to find new collaborators, or trying to manage the Twitter account, even just to provide some context, creating materials like articles, podcasts. So from the like the holistic perspective, it's I guess hard process.
One more time, a huge applause. Congratulations and thank you. Congratulations on your release, Łukasz.